Well, all right, you guys. Happy Memorial Day weekend, if that's what this weekend is. I always get the two vacations confused, the one at the beginning of the summer and the one at the end. But happy Memorial Day. I think there was some pretty significant news yesterday in the case of MMTLP. Before I start, I want to just say, in case someone from Ann Wagner's office is listening, and it's my understanding that the majority of investable assets, wealth in the country, the United States of America, is owned by women. It's owned by women. And you seem to have a channel directly to Goldman Sachs and the rest of Wall Street that has convinced you the best thing is to buy a specious argument that supporting the CAT system somehow supports privacy. What you're doing, Ann, is you're supporting the theft of money and wealth from the women of America. Ann Wagner. Bravo, Ann. Maybe we can get past the point where we measure things by whether someone is a woman. Oh, Ann Wagner is a woman in Congress. And we can measure people by the job they do. Oh, Ann Wagner is courageous. She's standing up for Americans' rights versus the big banks. But anyway, that's just a starting thought. Let's get to the news. Is there a date? No, there isn't a date. Oh, yes, there is. Entered 5/24. And I haven't read it. Intercoastal Waterways filed a lawsuit. And this was, I think, the attorney. Let's go to the back. Let's see who the attorney is. Sorry, I'm okay. So the attorney is BASILE Law Firm. So it's Agapsha Cruz, the BASILE Law Firm, and Joseph Rose, Esquire, also from the BASILE Law Firm. So Mark BASILE has done a good job here. I haven't read it. We're going to read it together. But this is one of the attorneys. I would give great credit to Richard Hoffman, and I don't know Rosa, but I assume Rosa also has done great work. And there's another attorney out there. But there's no question that Mark BASILE has been a moving force to seek, I hope, more than just settlements. Sometimes he gets a settlement and it doesn't help shareholders. I'm not sure that's his fault. What lawyers do not understand, or they realize they can't really prove, is if you look at stocks like HPIL, VNU, these are two stocks where Mark BASILE won against the Kramer brothers, Power Up Lending, and the CEO settled. Mark BASILE settled. And the result was the shareholders have zero. The shares are permanently seller boxed, and it's a lack of understanding of what the toxic notes are for. Toxic notes, the note itself, and the shares that are usury, the rates of return. That's one source of making money, but it is such a small part of the monies made by this crime. The real reason they create toxic notes is to have a pressure valve so that when a stock runs, look at GME. Last week it ran. I think that was coordinated, but let's just say it was out of the blue. They were ready with an offering, and I forget how many shares they offered. And I think the same thing happened with AMC. But who's buying those shares? There's no disclosure, and Wagner couldn't care less. You know, there's a thing up called Reg FD. You got to disclose everything, and Wagner doesn't care about it. Do you guys realize that your representatives, they come on strong, hey, we're women power or minority power, AOC, whatever power she's for. But there's nobody doing the job. I mean, I don't know. We can live in a world where we give the top 500 students of a class all the same top 4.0. I guess it makes everybody feel better. But who's doing the job? Who's doing the job? Anyway, Reg FD would require disclosure. Who bought those shares that were sold that stopped the short squeeze? Oh, I know, Ann. Investors don't have a right to short squeezes because they're trying to take advantage of the imbalance of the market forces of too many shares sold that don't exist and demand. But it's okay for your clients, Ann Wagner, to sell shares into oblivion, totally destroying price discovery in U.S. markets. That's okay because they bribe you, Ann. They bribe you. We're no different than a third world country, and we better wake up. All right, let's just move on. I could go on that whole subject, but I want to get to this. What I think attorneys miss is that, and I haven't read this is about MMTLP. When Torchlight sought financing from the criminals on Wall Street who support Ann Wagner, the selling began, the onslaught began. The selling begins as soon as the CEO of Torchlight speaks with a representative of the quasi-legal financial firm that's just a front for Ann Wagner's clients. Goldman, maybe Ken Griffin, maybe Cohen, maybe Black, maybe Morgan Stanley, anybody. By the way, the whole video is not financial advice. It's my own opinion. It's my own judgment. So the selling, the onslaught takes Torchlight down from, to my memory, in the teens, down to under $1. It cost a lot of my friends money. I lost money in it. And then Torchlight was forced to try to find value for its shell, and they did a reverse merger into MMAT, a perfectly exceptional North American technology company with the technologies which will revolutionize, Ann Wagner, your grandchildren's lives. But you sold out, Ann Wagner, to the banksters. So what happens? There's a big blob of stock that was sold into existence, didn't exist, just sold into existence. Real money gets paid for it because Wall Street is really good at making sure the money is on the barrelhead, but the certificates, what me worry? Well, we'll figure that out later. because they're trying to expand assets under management, to expand commissions, to expand stock loans without assets. And it all works while we're printing trillions of dollars around the world. The world takes our dollars mostly. But Ann Wagner, you're corrupt. And it's a shame. You got elected because you're a woman. You're representing women, and women are honest. Well, I don't see it. I don't see it. Come on, Ann, wake up. So anyway, the big blob of stock that is sold counterfeit in Torchlight can't be settled. As they do the reverse merger, the criminals come and they short the hell out of MMAT. You know what one of the big reasons is? Because MMAT is so successful, they need capital. So the criminals know, well, all we have to do is destroy the share price by selling stock into existence that doesn't exist. We destroy the denominator so that on a per share basis, nothing, Ann, literally nothing, makes the stock worth more than it was or projectable in the future as more when it will be than it is now on a per share basis. And that's because you're corrupt, Ann Wagner. You have a sacred trust and you sold out. So then there's the blob of counterfeit Torchlight, and now MMAT, they've counterfeited that. And then MMAT, the new guys there say, we don't want an oil and gas project. They distribute that as a private distribution, a distribution of a private company. The criminals, protected by Ann Wagner, the criminals falsify documents and they get MMTLP to trade. FINRA approves it, SEC approves it, and what happens? My understanding, I'll give a number. Wall Street sold 1 billion shares that do not exist of MMTLP. That's 1 billion. Who can prove it, Ann Wagner? You can, Ann Wagner, but you're corrupt. You don't care about your daughters, your granddaughters, women in America who invest for a better future for their children, Ann Wagner. What system could count those trades? Audit trail? Oh no, but that would be a violation of private information. And resign. Put someone honest in your seat. Please. This is so big. Look, frankly, Ann, by selling out to the banksters, you're not saving the system. And they're not going to protect you when it goes down. But it will go down. It means our entire banking system is built on counterfeit shares, bonds, paper metals. Housing is probably, they've come up with a way to sell the titles 5 or 6 or 10 times. It's not real wealth, Ann. It's not real wealth. And it'll come down when the faith is gone. And no one will be there to help you, Ann. You'll be in your house and at the edge of town, beautiful, but there'll be no money for government services. Nobody to provide you with the life that and the safety that you have, that we all have. It'll be gone. But short-term sellouts like you, Ann, I guess we have to stand in awe that you're one of the women in Congress, and and the future is women. I'm not impressed. Not impressed with you. I'm not impressed with Adina Friedman. Of course, I'm not impressed with the men. If you can call Gary Gensler a man. Now that we debate what's a woman, what's a man, my exhibit number one, that being born a man doesn't mean you are a man, is Gary Gensler. He's a mouse, also bought out. So it's not a sexual thing. It's human beings get corrupted by money, Ann Wagner. So what these notes do is they allow Wall Street and their nominees from overseas to sell literally trillions of dollars worth of stock. Down, 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 down. They hire bashers for anybody that fights back against this to bash in a perfect display of human cowardice and sleaziness. These people join in. And then these stocks go down, 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 and they're never settled. The SEC people want a job at Gibson done, so they settle. Goober Gary Gensler wants a job as Treasury or on the board of Goldman when he retires. Adina Friedman, I assume, wants to get put back at Carlyle and be rich beyond her dreams and her skill level and her integrity and her honoring of her oath. And I remind you, this entire video is in my opinion. So what's the purpose of these notes? And this is what lawyers miss. The purpose of these notes is to allow an escape valve, so the criminals can turn to the preset toxic formulae in these convertible notes to get shares real to cover and to sell. But the real selling happens before the note's signed, during the tenancy of the note, during the 6 months that they're not supposed to sell, as soon as those shares are received, and then ever afterward, because it's so big. And then the hapless CEO is seeking to raise money. Ann Wagner, in the case of MMAT, they have an electric battery filament, I'm using my own words, that separates the two items which cause explosions in the batteries of electric vehicles. Theirs is state-of-the-art, better than anyone else's. It improves mileage, and it's a brilliant invention. But Ann, the people that corrupted you knew that he has to go to the market for money. They fired him. They had people on the board. The board of MMAT was warned not to take a toxic financing. They did it anyway because, Ann, you do nothing. You don't oversee the securities laws that have been in place 100 years. You don't oversee anything except your bank account. All right, let's go into this document, because it just upsets me so much. I already spent 20 minutes on this. This is a great step by Mark BASILE Law Firm and by Intercoastal Waterways, LLC. Let's hope, just like the current complaint against Kurt Kramer by the SEC, let's hope that Mark BASILE does not settle this until discovery is made, and that he makes a requirement of settlement that information is made public. My fear is it'll come to settlement. The brave soul that created Intercoastal Waterways will face a choice. Go on alone, or here's a big payday. And it'll be very hard for that person not to accept the payday, because nobody can fight Wall Street, Ann Wagner. The cowardly Ann Wagner. Okay, so on May 24th, Intercoastal Waterways LLC filed versus TradeStation Securities. Now, let me quickly say something about TradeStation, Moo, and what's that other one? Waterboard Securities. What's that other one? And Red Hat, Robinhood. All of these securities firms were created to sell you fractional shares. They were created to take the pressure off the system when in the middle of short squeezes and coverings. And could it be there's a single honest senator out there or congresswoman? Regulator? They are able to honor your purchases by facilitating the sale. One of them in their business model, I don't have time to go, I don't know where it is, I printed it out. They admit that every share they give you is fractional, it's all made up. They're there to protect Ann Wagner's clients. Congress protects this behavior, and Ann Wagner is a stalwart, corrupt official protecting this behavior. Okay, so they're also suing FINRA. All right, so I'll try to read now that we're at 20 minutes. And I'll try to go through it at a pace. The plaintiff, Intercoastal Waterways, respectfully states as follows for its complaint against TradeStation, Doe defendants, and the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. I don't see anything that's regulatory about FINRA at all, and I don't see any authority they ever... Anyway, we'll leave that aside. The parties, number one, Plaintiff Intercoastal Waterways, an LLC formed under the laws of the state of Georgia. I wish they had done it in a different state, because already on Twitter, the people paid for by the criminals are attacking this person. Okay. TradeStation. Defendant TradeStation Securities is a Florida corporation with its principal place of business in Plantation, Florida. TradeStation is a securities broker-dealer registered with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA. The Doe defendants consist of anonymous third-party broker-dealers who, between October 21 and December 12, 22, borrowed Metamaterials Series A preferred dividend shares from TradeStation's customers pursuant to TradeStation's... I just realized something. That's all right. It's quiet enough. You can hear me. Pursuant to TradeStation's Master Securities Lending Agreement for the purpose of selling borrowed shares, including counterfeit shares. Brilliant, Mark. Brilliant. Sorry, I'll reread the two attorneys' names because it's not just Mark, but it's his law firm. Including counterfeit shares into open market to open short positions with the ticker MMTLP. So just think of the astounding nature of that statement. TradeStation's Master Securities Lending Agreement for the purpose of selling borrowed shares, including counterfeit shares. That's mimeographing shares that don't exist. And it doesn't bother Ann Wagner. She doesn't want to track it down. So they can sell borrowed shares, including counterfeit shares, into the open market to open short positions in the ticker symbol MMTLP. 5, the nominal defendant, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, is a corporation formed under the laws of the state of Delaware. So it's just a big title for a private company. Headquartered in Washington, D.C., and its principal place of business is K Street. FINRA operates an office in the state of Florida in Boca Raton, which happens to be ground zero to sketchy broker-dealer operations. Okay, jurisdiction and venue. This court has subject matter jurisdiction over this case. Let's see where the court is. It's the Southern District of Florida. I don't know if I already said that. Because the plaintiff is asserting a claim under the Securities and Exchange Act of 1934. So, Ann, I exaggerated. It's 90 years ago. 1933, 89 years ago. Okay, 8, this court has supplemental jurisdiction over plaintiff's state law claims for violations of section 678.5041, Florida statute 2023. I'm going to skip. There's quite a few. There's 4 or 5 of those. Breach of contract, negligent misrepresentation, negligence per se, conversion, breach of fiduciary duty, unjust enrichment. Can the fruit from a poison tree end up in Ann Wagner's campaign trough? Can that be called unjust enrichment? Oh no, she's honorable. Unjust enrichment and constructive trust pursuant to 28 U.S.C. as the claims rise out of the same common nucleus of operative facts as plaintiffs claim under the Exchange Act. I'm not going to reread that because I'm sure we'll see all those charges in more detail. This court has diversity jurisdiction over this action as there is complete diversity of citizenship between plaintiff and the defendants, and the amount in controversy exceeds $75,000. Venue is proper in this court because a substantial part of the events giving rise to plaintiff's claims occurred in this district. Okay, now we get into the factual background. And Ann Wagner, listen up. Cat would stop this. Well, it'd be a database. Only you can stop it, Ann Wagner. You've been elected with the trust of the American people to enforce securities laws to protect women's investments, which are larger than men's. It's not a hard choice. To me, if I were in your seat, I would vote for transparency, and I would put the sunshine on this activity that you protect. Okay, factual background. Metamaterials Inc. Series A preferred dividend shares and NextBridge Hydrocarbons Inc. 11, on or about June 28, 2021, Metamaterials, that's a company that has technology in all manner of transformative ways. But one I just told you about is it helps electric vehicles become a viable alternative to other choices of transportation. But keep collecting those checks from Goldman Sachs, Ann. It makes you a good person. Okay, so on or about June 28, 2021, MetaMaterials merged with Torchlight Energy Resources, a company publicly traded on the NASDAQ stock market under the ticket of TRCH. Now, NASDAQ, and it used to be the premier over-the-counter exchange in the world. Under the leadership of Adina Friedman, it's a joke. Absolute joke. She has no curiosity what happens to these companies. So MetaMaterials CEO and board expected by doing a reverse merger into a NASDAQ company, meeting all of the requirements with their exciting technology and growth, they could be met with an honest and fair level playing field exchange. Instead, the corruption of Congress and of the regulators led to the destruction of MMAT by, if I can borrow these words, shares borrowed from TradeStation's customers pursuant to TradeStation's master securities lending agreement for purpose of selling borrowed shares, including counterfeit shares. But that doesn't bother Adina Friedman. There's not an inch of curiosity in her mind. And it doesn't trigger any conscience when Ann Wagner goes down to the credit union and cashes her U.S. government checks. Okay, so they did a reverse merger into Torchlight. After the merger, MetaMaterials subsequently began trading on the NASDAQ stock market under the symbol MMAT. As part of the merger transaction, MetaMaterials issued a special dividend in the form of a Series A preferred dividend share to Torchlight Energy shareholders that held shares prior to the merger. Okay, they footnote it, see SEC filings. 14. Although Torchlight Energy and MetaMaterials never intended for the MMTLP shares to be publicly traded, in October of 21, the Series A preferred dividend shares began trading in the over-the-counter markets, another market that's a joke, run by Chuck E. Cheese Crawwell, another useless individual. Sorry, he's got several C's in his name and a useless organization. So this gives a footnote to number 3. It was noted in a congressional research report that John Berta, the former chief executive officer of Torchlight Energy, stated in an interview with Forbes, quote, MMTLP was never designed to trade, unquote. See Congressional Research Service. And that Forbes article was August 21, 2023. It looks like, if I read that correctly. 15, the Series A preferred dividend shares were actively listed and trading on the over-the-counter markets for approximately 14 months. Between October 2021 and December 9th of 2022. In July 2022, the board of directors of MetaMaterials voted to spin out the assets of Torchlight Energy into a new separate company called Nexbridge Hydrocarbons, Inc., Nexbridge. The record date for the spinoff was December 12, 2022. Okay, so just to review some of the facts. On June 28, 21, Metamaterials did a reverse merger into Torchlight Energy Resources, a NASDAQ stock, symbol TRCH. After the merger, Metamaterials began trading with that company, but they changed the symbol to MMAT. As part of that merger, Metamaterials issued a special dividend in order to essentially separate the Torchlight Energy asset. They distributed Series A preferred dividend shares to Torchlight Energy shareholders. And they called that MMTLP. And then those started trading in October of 2021. So then the record date for this spinoff of NextBridge Hydrocarbon was December 12th, 2022. In July of 2022, NextBridge filed an S-1 registration statement, which was reviewed by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and became effective November 18, 2022. It became effective by the agency Congress oversees, the SEC, on November 18, 2022. Pursuant to NextBridge's Form S-1, holders of the Series A preferred dividend shares would receive a 1-for-1 share exchange at a future date, where one Series A preferred dividend share would be exchanged for one share of NextBridge common stock. 18. On December 14, NextBridge executed its, so on December 14th, 2022, NextBridge executed its 1-for-1 exchange. And as of July 21, 2023, NextBridge has 248,830,516 shares outstanding. That's about 9 months ago. And they footnote that to the frequently asked questions on NextBridge's website, which is nextbridgehydrocarbons.com, nextbridgehydrocarbons.com. They also, in the previous statement, referenced the SEC filings for Form S-1. Further, like the MMTLPs, NextBridge common shares were not intended to be traded. It's in the prospectus, it says in the footnote. 19. At the time the Series A preferred dividend was created, the dividend represent both a financial interest in Torchlight Energy's assets and a future equity interest in NextBridge post-spinoff. NextBridge's S-1 stated that holders of the Series A preferred dividend would be, in quote, entitled to receive certain dividends based on the net proceeds of the sale of any assets that are used or held for use in Meta's oil and natural gas exploration business, and may also receive a pro rata dividend of equity in a spin-off entity to which Meta will transfer any remaining assets of such business, unquote. TradeStation's customer account agreement, so line 20. On October 31, 2022, plaintiffs' principal electronically signed an application to open TradeStation equity account. I don't know why I screwed that sentence up. On October 31, 2022, plaintiff's principal electronically signed an application to open a TradeStation equity account, and they attached the exhibit. 21. On or about November 17, 2022, plaintiff's application was approved. The account number, I'm not going to read it out, even though it's here publicly, and I'm sure the gentleman on Twitter will put it out all over. These people on Twitter that you're listening to over and 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 over again for 500 days, they're not your friends. They're there to freeze you into inaction. They're working for the criminals. They're working for the hedge funds. They're working for the counterfeiters. They're working